Gene Westcott Inez, and right now joining me is our special guest of the hour, one of the busiest members of Congress I know, and I know a few, Republican Congressman Mike Waltz. How are you doing, Congressman?
Hey, doing great, Gene. Good to be with you.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. Before we start, I do want to play something one of our listeners sent for you at the beginning of the hour. You'll like this.
Tell him his guy, Nick Burnett, is an all-star. That man is so good. He got all my unemployment taken care of, and he hooked me up with the lady for the coronavirus money. Thank you, Michael. Tell Nick thank you.
One of your constituents there.
You know what? Thanks so much for playing that. That makes my day. Nick himself was an Air Force veteran. And, when we talk about Congress and members of Congress, there's so much attention, and there should be, but there's just so much attention on the big national, multi-year transformative legislation. But what I don't think gets enough attention is constituent services. I have 3 offices in the district. I have fantastic caseworkers, and I love hearing those stories because day in and day out they are affecting people's lives in a positive way, and it's what I call base hits. I just truly love to hear about people getting help, navigating the federal bureaucracy, getting the resources that they deserve, whether they paid into Social Security or veterans who have earned their benefits and are having a hard time with the bureaucracy. That really makes my day, so thanks for playing that.
Oh, not a problem, Congressman. And, yeah, if you're listening out there and you've never contacted your local representative's office, do it. They have staff there waiting to have you reach out to them. Congressman, I want to ask you about a few things, but let's start. I'm going to get to the Florida COVID-19 cases in a second, but I want to start with the Justice Act because you're really passionate about this. You came out in support of this. This is now the Republican plan to reform policing in America. We had the Democrat plan in the House last week. Now you guys have the Justice Act, and you're all about this. What is the big change or some of the biggest changes that this would bring to America where people would notice differences?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So first I want to say unequivocally, I support our men and women in blue. I think the vast majority are fantastic Americans that day in and day out strap on that badge and put themselves between the bad guys and our communities, 99.99%. But we do have to take care of, there are bad cops out there, and I do think we need to do a better job at reform. So a couple of things that are in this Justice Act that I was very supportive of, and I think Senator Scott did a great job pulling these things together, was one, we need better reporting. We need better data. There's been obviously a lot of emotion around the country around some of these horrific incidences, particularly Mr. Floyd, but we need more actual data. So it has use of force reporting. It has no-knock warrant reporting. It puts incentives in place to ban chokeholds. Those decisions are made at the state and local level, but this will put incentives in place. What I really like about it is putting more resources behind body-worn cameras, the body cameras that I think more often than not tell the story of the great job that our police forces do, but often will help also tell the full story when we have something go wrong,
right.
Like what we're seeing now in Atlanta. And then finally, we need better records retention so that when we do have bad cops, they can't hop from department to department or state to state, that we have more of a database. And I think all of those things will make a tremendous difference. That's out of the Senate now. We'll see what comes out of the House. I have issues with some of the bill, some of the language with the bill that Speaker Pelosi dropped last week. I do not think taking qualified immunity writ large away from police officers is the right thing to do.
Can I stop you right there? Could you explain?
And I certainly don't believe in defunding the police.
Could you explain what qualified immunity is for the people who might not be familiar with that, and why you're not for that, or if we're getting rid of it?
Yeah. So essentially, it puts it puts some guide rails around whether you can sue a police officer for civilly, right, and basically take their assets, take their family, their retirement accounts, their house, go after them financially. And the last thing I want is when that police officer, that man or woman is going into harm's way, worried about every action they take could affect their family, kind of dragging their family into this. I want to be very clear on something. The Supreme Court has ruled that if an officer is found guilty of a crime, then qualified immunity already does not apply. So in that case, then you can. But to kind of make that more broad, when we have some of these very, very difficult, complicated gray area situations where you're pulling that immunity away from them, I think will do more to harm retention and recruiting in our police force, and will also do more to prevent them from doing their job the way they need to do it.
Speaking with Congressman Mike Waltz, who represents parts of Volusia County. Congressman, there's a million topics that we could talk about, but in the interest of time, I want to get to the news of the day, which is that Florida recorded another 3,800 COVID-19 cases. I just want to know from you, what's your thoughts on this, on Florida's cases? Are you concerned? What goes through your head when you hear these numbers?
Well, I think a couple of things. One, we have to pay attention to hospitalization rates. We have to pay attention to deaths in the county where I live, in St. Johns County. And look, every death from this disease is terrible, but we're talking about, what are the broader societal things and things that government should do. We've had 7 in St. Johns County, right, where the Republican National Convention is now being relocated in Duval, major metropolis. We've had 50. Mm-hmm. So first thing is that, when the mainstream media talks about COVID in Florida, they act like the entire state is South Beach, Miami, and
right.
That's just
and
not the case. We've had a very different experience in different parts of the state. And then the other thing, very quickly, Gene, is
Sure.
We just seem to have kind of moved the goalpost in this conversation. We have to go back and remember the point of the shutdown, and the governor has said this as well repeatedly, was to flatten the curve so that our hospital systems could be ready, could have the equipment, the ventilators, the PPE, and the beds that they need. We have done that, and it is just not sustainable to go to mass shutdowns. Again, we are causing much harm with suicides, addiction, opioids. People aren't getting the heart and cancer treatments that they need. And to the extent we do need to go back to kind of restrictions, I think it needs to be in the municipalities that are most affected. And right now, the data I've seen, that looks like South Florida.
And Congressman, would you have any advice for people out there just in general as far as wearing the masks and keeping the precautions and social distancing and all that? Do you think that still needs to be top of mind for everybody?
Well, absolutely. I do think so. Personal responsibility steps in. I just had an experience. I went to a barber shop that had everything in place, sanitizer, washing, masks, and then I went to another establishment. I was going to take my mother, who's 70, and there was nothing in place. People were crowded at the doorway, and you know what we did? We turned around and didn't go in. I called the owner, who I happen to know, and she called the manager and got those things back in place. So we can't slip. We need to still follow those guidelines. But I think when we're talking about mass shutdown versus getting people back to work so they can feed their families, that's the part of the debate I'm really focused on.
Republican Congressman Mike Waltz joining us live today. There's so many things we could talk about. I appreciate the Justice Act talk. I wanted to talk about veteran suicide, the Supreme Court. But as usual, I'll keep in touch with you through these next few weeks, and we'll get to all the topics. But thank you for taking the time out to join us on News at Noon today.
Thank you, Gene. And as a Green Beret and as a veteran, that suicide issue is critical to me, so happy to come on and talk to you about what we're doing about it.
We will have that conversation soon, so I'm going to make sure to reach out to you on that one. There he is, Congressman Mike Waltz. If you want to react and send us your comments on that interview, just use the open mic feature in our app. And the
issue is critical to me, so happy to come on and talk to you about what we're doing about it.
We will have that conversation soon, so I'm going to make sure to reach out to you on that one. There he is, Congressman Mike Waltz. If you want to react and send us your comments on that interview, just use the open mic feature in our app, and we